State Senator Jeremy England, District 51, Chair of Elections Committee, and also Vice Chair of Ports and Marines. Good morning, Senator England. How are you, sir? It's good to have you.
Hey, good morning, Paul. Doing good. How are you doing today?
Did you get a rain yesterday?
We did, yeah, but I think it was one of those rains where it was just so hot for a while that it just, look, it poured for about 10 minutes and then it was it.
That's called a Mississippi steam bath, by the way. That's what it is.
That's right.
All right. There are so many different things to talk about. I want to go into this one, though, because we are near the end of the year, fiscal year. We're not on a calendar year, we're on a fiscal year, and the state's calendar ends June, the last of June, starts July the 1st. That's when a lot of laws, the ones that didn't automatically begin, and I think it's the majority of them, take shape on July the 1st. Any from your committee that you want to spotlight here before we march on?
Well, so my committee, we had a very busy elections committee, coming out of a statewide election. Look, I expect the same thing next year after our federal election. Several of our bills, like the bill that we passed that moves runoff elections from 3 weeks to 4 weeks, that actually doesn't take effect until January 1st of 2025. We didn't want to throw that at our clerk's offices quickly, but bills that are taking effect from my committee, we have the digitization ban, which bans what we know as deep fakes in campaigns. That takes effect. The ban on ranked choice voting takes effect. And I also believe our bill where we move justice court judges to be completely nonpartisan, just like all other judges in Mississippi, I believe that takes effect as well. But off the top of my mind, those are the few from the Elections Committee that will be going into effect.
Well, let me just, while I've got this, HB 1035, Justice Court judges included in the nonpartisan judicial election. Mr. Horan had that one. It was approved by the governor. And also in your committee, Mr. Sanford, Senator Sanford, or House Member Sanford, state officers make minor non-substantive changes regarding swearing in of. That was HB 1121, and that was approved by the governor. I have no idea what that bill does.
Yeah, so it's a very simple bill, really. It's complicated in the way it reads, because the way we used to do things is you had to have the House vote, just like we do in federal elections with the Electoral College, on statewide offices. We did away with that a couple of years ago, where we've gone completely to popular vote now across Mississippi. So we know who our governor is. We don't have to have the House members come in and vote themselves to elect a governor. And so that had set back the time for inauguration and swearing in. So we just it was really a cleanup bill is what it was, Paul. It was pretty simple. Yeah.
Just to make sure that people have their bearings correct, because we got the November 5th coming up, the presidential election. Any major changes that they need, because this will take effect for this November? So any major changes that they were able to do before that they can't do now, or vice versa?
Yes. Now, Paul, I believe these changes take effect. Now, keep in mind, when we finished up looking at between July 1st and November, we were very wary of putting these changes on the clerk. So I'm not 100% that these take effect, but I will explain one big change for elections that has to do with absentee ballot voting. When you show up in person to vote, absentee, if you had one of the excuses, what you would do is you'd be given a form. You had to fill out the form, which was basically an affidavit requesting the absentee ballot. Then they would give you the ballot, and you had to sign both of those. So we've taken that process, and this was at the request of our Circuit Clerks Association. We put all of those signatures on one envelope. So you no longer have, you don't have to sign both pieces of paper, because what we were seeing is signatures being thrown out, because you do have to sign across the flap on the absentee ballot. Now, we have added a box. Another thing we did was to try to direct people to sign across that flap to keep their ballots from being thrown out. But again, those are very good, just kind of clean up changes that people may see if they show up, if they're going to be out of town, or if they have one of these other excuses to vote absentee. And if they've done it before, they'll notice that they're not signing two pieces of paper any longer. They're just going to be given the envelope to sign.
When we talked to the Secretary of State, Michael Watson, when questions we've asked before, are you pretty confident in the machines that we use, which are a hybrid of technology and paper ballot? We mark it on paper ballot. We send it to the machine to record it. are you confident that cannot be hacked into? And I think he has said more than once, yes, but I don't understand that if it's connected, if it's not connected to a modem or something. But if you're transmitting those results anywhere else, could they be hacked?
Paul, look, I would agree with our Secretary of State. Look, he's done a fine job at making sure that our elections are very secure and that we have integrity in all of our elections in our state. I think he's done a great job in office doing that. And look, our paper ballots, I really like the system that we have. Now, it was a headache for a while for our elections commissioners, and of course you have to make sure you have enough printed ballots. I want to speak loud enough for our folks in Hinds County to hear that we have enough printed ballots for people to actually mark. But look, when you put them in those Scantrons, that's a very accurate system, and it tallies those votes within the machine, and then those votes aren't tabulated till the end of the day to give you a complete run-out report. So it's not, these results aren't going across online. Now, look, my elections commissioner would disagree. He really liked the old system. He had it down to a science on getting the voting machines working. But I do think our paper ballot, it just adds an extra level of security. And look, even in elections challenges, you've got actual paper ballots you can go look at for those instances. So I think we've got a very good system here in Mississippi.
If there is a disagreement, you got a paper trail.
That's right. The paper trail is very helpful. You can go count actual ballots by hand if you need to.
Since this is your committee, I got to ask you, because it just seems like it's almost taken for granted now. Here's what we're going to, we know that they're giving ballot forms to illegals. We know that. Everything, even they're seeing this. Whether they fill them out or not, we don't know. There was a press conference where one of the members of Congress is talking about, well, if you do fill this out, it's deportable offense. Big deal. You're here illegal. You should be a deportable offense. So I don't think that's going to scare them. If they think this is going to solidify my chance of Joe Biden staying here in office, and all the subsidies I'm going to get is also going to be fortified, then I'm going to sign a piece of paper. I don't think they care. How do we stop this? Because somebody on one of the social media platforms said it this morning, the Supreme Court's got to get involved. How can they get involved? Should they get involved? Something's got to happen before this election as far as counting illegal votes. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, Paul, look, I think that's certainly a national issue, and I'm with you. I think the Supreme Court ought to get involved. I think these states that are allowing illegal immigrants to have their driver's licenses and then to actually cast votes in local elections, you're just opening that up to a big issue. Now in Mississippi, we're shutting that down. You do have to be a registered voter. You have to be a qualified elector to vote in one of Mississippi's elections, and even to receive an absentee ballot by mail or in person, you have to be a qualified elector already registered in Mississippi, and you have to show your ID, a verified ID. So we're pretty solid here, but nationwide, look, especially in the presidential elections, we Mississippians want to make sure that our president that goes into Washington and represents us, that person was elected by qualified electors and United States citizens. So that's a nationwide issue that we need to follow and be loud about. But I think our message needs to be, look what we're doing in Mississippi, replicate that. We've got a good system here.
You have to be careful because in these blue states, you get a lot of voters who are also not paying taxes saying if the illegals want to vote for us, they're going to be voting for the same thing we're voting for, and that's fine until one day they don't. And we see that in some places like Minnesota or some other places where that illegal now legal is becoming a formidable political party. It's a little bit scary. Anything else as far as the election is concerned?
I think that's it, Paul. I think, look, our ban on ranked choice voting, that's something that Alec recently named me a policy champion on, which, look, that's not just an award for me. That goes to the entire legislature and to the Secretary of State's office and the governor's office that push that. That's making sure that everyone's vote is counted. We're not going to have an instant runoff system where you rank different candidates on a ballot. We're going to make sure that candidates in a runoff go out and have a chance to debate each other so that our electors know who they're voting for. I think that was a big one that a lot of people might not understand, but it's really going to be a huge win by banning that.
Do you know what the name of the machines are we have? Are they all one type, all one brand from one company?
I'm not sure, and I don't think so, Paul, because the more I meet with these circuit clerks' offices since I've been appointed chairman of this great committee, I think they have different vendors that they can look at, but they do have very, very strict guidelines that they have to go through to make sure that those are met. And I like that because some of our counties can't afford some of the deals yet.
Okay, so I'm going to continue this conversation when we come back. You're saying they all do the process the same way, but they might be different vendors or different makers. Okay, well,
That's correct.
Continue this coming up in just a moment. Thanks, Ever. If speaking of elections, one more thing here. If we were doing it over, you couldn't have done this in the Founding Fathers' Day or the state's constitution. But I would say vote Friday and Saturday, 2 days. That way you got a work day and you got a day off. You can find some time one way or the other in there. 7 a.m., 7 p.m., Friday and Saturday. The problem is you got to count the votes on Saturday night, might go into Sunday morning, and if it went into Sunday counting votes in the old days, you're going to go from the jail to hell. So you couldn't do that in the old days. Now you probably could get away with it as far as counting votes on Sunday. But 2 weeks prior as far as absentee, that's enough. And forget about the ballot harvesting and all that. But,
that's right. And look, Paul, I had a bill this year. I was going to try to give us an in-person early voting period, which was going to be just 2 weeks. It was going to completely get rid of the 45 days for absentee, in-person absentee balloting. We passed it in the Senate. It got held up in the House, and I know the governor had some issues with it, but I hope to have that conversation again, and maybe we can do that because, look, people are busy. My wife works at Ingalls Shipbuilding. She may be, if she's at work at the shipyard, she's at her desk at 7 o'clock in the morning, and trying to get to vote by 7 o'clock on a Tuesday is very tough with her. We have 2 kids that are very active as well, and I know that's the same. A lot of missions trying to vote on Tuesday is just very difficult sometimes.
Yep. So that's why a 2-day on a work day on Friday and also on a Saturday you're covering both of those, but. It may be. It apparently is not a good enough idea to take a look at. Now, when does Louisiana have theirs? They don't have theirs on a normal Tuesday, do they?
I'm not sure. I know they have. I do believe they have a little bit of an early voting period. Look, Mississippi is one of only 3 states that do not have some form of early voting, which you got to be careful with. We see a lot of blue states having difficulties with that, and some red states. But what my plan was to do is have you show up at your clerk's office, present your voter ID, and then be given that Scantron ballot just like you are on election day, and put it in the exact same Scantron machine. Looking at a lot of different states and working with the folks that we worked with, that seems to be the most secure system to do that.
So I just want to cover this one more time before we leave the elections. You're saying that there are different makers having basically the machine that does the same thing, the paper ballot hybrid.
Yeah, that's right. Look, anytime you have something like that, you're going to have different vendors that can do it, and your circuit clerks go out and look at them. But the Secretary of State's office has administrative authority to look at those and to make sure that there are different regulations on those. You've got a secure system, and of course these vendors then go look at those qualifications and make sure that they're looking up. But with the paper ballot, again, with the trail and the ability to go back and look at your paper ballot afterwards, the Scantron machine is basically just reading that ballot, making sure it's correctly filled out. If it's not, it gives you another chance to do it, and then it tabulates the votes. It's a very simple system. And look, there probably is one that's used by most clerks in the state, but I do know that there are a few different options available.
Jeremy England. Jeremy is the District 51 Chair of Elections, State Senator from District 51, as I mentioned. Before I pick your brain on the debate coming up, and I know that's going to have quite a bit of an audience as far as the debate is concerned. Anything in the 2025 session that you're working on now during the summer that's going to be front and foremost for you?
Yes, Paul. So I just recently learned that the Lieutenant Governor appointed me to this Children, Mothers, Women, and Families Committee that's chaired by my friend Senator Nicole Boyd. So I'm going to look at a lot of things there. I've talked with a lot of people in my community that say gang issues are coming back to the forefront. So I want to look at those and really looking forward to what kind of issues we're going to see coming out of that committee this year.
I mean, what are the solutions there?
Well, Paul, I think we need to incentivize
jails.
Well, look, I think we need to incentivize families that see their children graduate high school. We've had a problem so long with people incentivizing just having children but not raising their children. And look, I know that that's an issue where tax dollars, what do you do with the tax dollars? But look, if we've got families that are getting benefits for a child and that child's not even at home, they're out of the house, they're in a gang, they're committing crimes, well, those parents are benefiting from just having that child. We want them raising the children. I think that's something maybe we can look at. And look, I'm speaking way ahead of there. That's just an idea I had the other day because we've got to get a hold of that.
We'll revisit that. The clock is going to take us out.
Certainly.
Your pick for vice president, who's he going to be for Trump?
Look, I've always liked Tim Scott. Tim Scott, I think, is just a very, very great guy, a lot of character, but I think we've got a lot of people on that bench, and I think Donald Trump's going to make a good decision there.
Well, the rumor this morning ticking up a little bit was Vivek. So we'll see what happens with that one. Jeremy, as always, sir.
He's probably my least favorite.
Take care. We'll see you later.
Thank you very much, Paul.